Exploring innovation space. Now we've seen that innovation involves a journey moving from ideas to create value from those ideas. But which ideas? And how far, how long should the journey be? And in which direction? These are questions we're going to explore in this film. Basically, we're also going to look at some tools to help us manage the journey. And we're going to focus on three core concepts. The distance, how far we should travel, the idea of how much the innovation is incremental or radical in terms of its novelty, the direction, which way could we innovate, and the level that we're innovating. So let's start with the first of these concepts, the idea of innovation distance, in terms of how novel, how much novelty are we dealing with? Innovation's about change, but how much change? And one of the concepts important here is the idea of incremental innovation. This is essentially doing what we do a little bit better. So it might be a line extension or an improvement in a product or optimizing a process. It's little improvements, doing what we do better. And these have a number of advantages. First of all, they build on what we already know. So we're not working with the unknown, the unfamiliar, with high uncertainty. We do have a lot of knowledge. We're just incrementally moving forward. So the risk is a lot lower. And the benefit of this is we therefore can probably implement this fairly successfully. So there's a lot of good reasons why we would want to do incremental innovation. It's relatively easy to manage. The downside is, of course, that these small steps have relatively low impact. Taken on their own, they're only very small steps forward. And that sets us up for trouble if we keep on moving forward just doing what we do a bit better and somebody else makes a big leapfrog, we could be in trouble. So there are advantages, but also disadvantages to only doing incremental innovation. Now, the other type of innovation we ought to talk about is radical innovation. This is essentially innovation where we're doing something completely different, perhaps something we've never done before. That's very different from doing what we do better. This is about a big step forward, a big leap, and it may well involve a radical improvement in terms of some dimension of performance, or some dramatic reduction in the costs. So it's the kind of innovation which has the advantage of step change and also the advantage sometimes of changing the game. So a lot of things that create new industries, a lot of things that give small businesses, small startups a real opportunity involve radical innovation. However, there are also some disadvantages. First of all, it's uncertain. We don't know, the world has perhaps never seen this before, so the risks are very high. And as a result, it's not necessarily easy to implement radical innovations. And they're going to need to have a lot of learning. We need new knowledge to drive such innovation. This isn't building on what we know, this is creating new knowledge. So once again, this pattern of big advantages, but also some challenges if we're serious about managing radical innovation, doing something different. Now, if you think about it, startups very often involve radical innovation. It's in their nature. What you're trying to do as a startup entrepreneur is to see something that no one else has seen, seize an opportunity and take that forward. So one other thing we ought to look at are the overall patterns of innovation that we can see. Because it's not really a question of incremental or radical, they both matter and they work together. Incremental innovation on its own is about doing what we do better, about small steps, but they add up. If we take something like quality, quality is something which we hardly notice the innovation because so much of that is around continuous improvement. But in the old days, the bad old days, we used to talk about percentage defects. That is to say, of a product, we might assume in 100 versions of those produced, maybe somewhere, some number would be defects. These days, we talk in parts per million. Whether it's microchips or motor cars, essentially the level of quality has gone up and up and up. Not through one radical quality innovation, but through continuous incremental innovation. But even if we take radical innovation, which gives us a step change, that takes an awful lot of incremental innovation to make it work. We've talked a little earlier about breakthroughs, some of the radical innovations which have changed the world, but they don't instantly change the world. There's a great deal of learning and development. We have to get the bugs out of the system. We have to improve and come up with new versions, essentially incremental innovation. So the pattern is the two working together to move things forward. And it's important to recognize that all along, whether it's through big steps, radical innovation, or through lots of small steps, what we're also doing is building and consolidating the knowledge base. And as we'll see throughout this course, knowledge is at the heart of innovation. Knowledge gives us the ideas which could create value. So what we've seen in this film is that innovation is about change, but that journey of change can be a short, incremental step forward or a big leap forward. But importantly, it's not a case of either incremental or radical innovation. They both matter. In fact, they're parts of a spectrum of novelty, moving from doing what we do better, incremental, right through to doing something completely different, radical innovation. So let's try and summarize where we've been in this film. We've basically said that innovation can involve change, and there are different degrees of novelty to that change. And we can think about this as the distance we might travel on our innovation journey. Some of them will be local trips, familiar, essentially doing what we do but better, incremental innovation. But some of them might be big leaps into the unknown, radical innovation. It's not an either-or, but a spectrum, different novelty along a spectrum. But the further you go, if we go back to our distance metaphor, the higher the risk.